Hello, just Corey jumping in before the show to let you know that we are going to VidCon London. That's right, on Sunday the 23rd of February you can catch us at 10:45am in the ICC Capital Suite Room 17. So if you're going to VidCon London, come and enjoy the show, and if you're not, cry. Let's start this week off with a little email.
Not a wee email.
Not a wee email.
No, a little one.
Email.
A little one this time.
Is it little?
It's slightly larger than other emails.
Okay.
It's not actually an email, it's a comment from our YouTube channel.
Oh, I
Which
feel like
you've
I've been
lied
lied
to
to.
us.
Well, you were lied to, but only briefly.
A comment is technically an email.
I don't like you. So this one comes from T-Cats and Top Hats.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's a good name.
So it says, hello, SCI GUYS.
Hello.
Hello.
Always taken by surprise. I just wanted to say thank you for the brilliant podcast. Although I don't study science, I obsess over strange and random science experiments / stories. So I was thrilled when I found you lot.
Oh,
Thank you.
I'm currently studying art and I like to put on these podcasts while I work. Working on a portfolio, really hope I get into college.
wow.
Yeah, I hope you get to
Aw.
college too.
I've got all my fingers crossed.
And my toes.
And my toes.
I was wondering if you could cover the story of Henrietta Lacks and the HeLa cell line. It's a very fascinating and very sad story. And unfortunately, Henrietta doesn't really get the coverage that she deserves. Or at least I don't think she does. Again, thank you all for making these humorous but still respectful and interesting podcasts. Wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
Is that what this episode's about then?
Are we doing that this
It
week?
might be, I don't know. Let's find out after the intro. Hello and welcome to the SCI GUYS, the show where we talk about the crazy, weird, and wonderful stories from the science world. I'm Corey, and as always, I'm joined by my co-hosts, Jamp and Luke Cutforth.
Hi.
Hello.
Today we'll be talking about stolen cells and immortality.
Ooh.
Is that the thing from the email?
Yeah, it's the thing from me.
Okay, cool.
Stolen cells or stone cells?
Stolen. Stones don't have cells. They're rocks.
Nicked.
Who took the cells?
Well, you'll find out if you listen to the story.
Okay.
People often complain about a lack of representation of women in STEM industries, but there is one woman that has made her mark on some of the greatest medical breakthroughs of the past 70 years. However, this happened entirely unbeknownst to her. Henrietta Lacks was at the center of the biggest controversy surrounding ethics in science, or one of them at least.
You really walked back from that claim, didn't you?
It's because I wrote one of the biggest ones and I missed out the one of. There are probably bigger ones, but this is actually it's a massive, massive controversy that we'll be digging into today.
Okay.
So, who was Henrietta Lacks?
No idea. You have to. The person from the YouTube.
That's right. I'll tell you who she is.
I think the whole point is that she doesn't get enough coverage. So
Yeah.
let's find out who she is.
So Henrietta Lacks was born on August 1st, 1920, or 74 BL.
I love how you've worked it
Oh.
out now.
Yes, in Roanoke, Virginia. Yes, I have to spend all of my time sitting, going through
Translating
the
the
dates,
dates.
and translating it into Luke.
You know what I'm going to do for you, Corey?
What are you
I'm
going
going
to
to
do?
make a website that's a BL converter, just so that you can have a slightly easier time.
You have too much time on your hands.
It'll take him like 30 minutes. I can see it.
Too much time. Solve world hunger.
That'll take him like 30
I can't
minutes.
code that
guarantee.
in HTML and JavaScript. If hungry, then feed.
It's
Enter.
really that simple.
Run.
So she was called Loretta Pleasant, but she changed her name to Henrietta at some point. Nobody really knows when.
Loretta Pleasant.
Do we know why?
No.
That's
Maybe
cool.
she just liked the name Henrietta better.
Yeah. Sometimes it'd be.
Was she called Henrietta Better?
No, she's called Henrietta Pleasant at this point.
Ah.
Yeah. She died of cervical cancer in October, the 4th of October in 1951.
I thought you meant this October.
No, not this
that's what
October.
he was gonna say.
She
God.
will be dying.
She's 99 years old. Or 100 years old now.
Yeah, no, so that was October 4th, 1951.
That's really young.
Yeah, she was
Yeah.
31 years old.
Aw.
She was also black and a mother of 5. So this story is going to go very, very well for her, as
Oh.
I'm sure you can tell.
Yes.
So after the death of her mother in 1924, Henrietta was sent to live with her grandfather in a log cabin that had been the slave quarters of a white ancestors plantation.
Whoa.
Yep, she
off
shared
to a great
a
start.
room with her first cousin, David
David a day.
She shared a room with her first cousin, David Day Lacks. In 1935, when Henrietta was 14, she had a son with her cousin. The son was called Lawrence.
Strange start to life.
Okay.
It is a strange start. And then 4 years later, they had another child, a daughter, Elsie. Then they married in 1941, moved to Maryland, and had 3 more children.
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah.
Successful
Happy
breeding.
family.
Yeah, with her cousin.
With your cousin.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah, who she married. At least she got a different name, though. That'd
Yeah.
be awkward.
Would be,
Awkward,
wouldn't it?
yeah. Awkward otherwise.
Did she want to marry her cousin?
I assume
Seems
so.
so, yeah.
Well, then I hope they're very happy in the
Well,
past.
they're not. She's dead.
Oh.
Hope they were very happy.
She died at 31, look. They were not very
Oh,
happy.
That's not very happy, is it?
No, it's
Yeah.
not.
It's not the worst type of incest.
But what's less happy?
Sorry, James.
What?
Not the worst time.
No, to be
Could be
fair, no,
worse.
he is right. There is worse.
Sure, there are scales, but it's not a comment I've ever heard anyone say.
What is the worst kind of incest? Let us know.
No, don't.
Email us, sciGuysPod@gmail.com. Luke's microphone's given up.
Look, what is the worst type of incest?
Okay. Let me think about this. No, let me not think about this and ask you to politely move on and maybe cut this whole section out.
It's staying in.
Okay.
Because I'm going to reference it throughout the episode.
Good.
So Elsie was developmentally disabled and so was put in, and I quote, the hospital for the Negro insane.
Oh, no.
Oh, dear.
What does that mean? How do you define Negro insane?
Well, she was black.
And she wanted rights?
No, she was developmentally disabled. She was meant to.
Oh, okay. She was okay.
Yeah, she
right.
was,
okay.
yeah, she had-
I thought you were going to say that, like, she had crazy ideas, like being an equal person.
No, she had just severe
She was
learning
a smart
disabilities.
woman in science.
Oh.
Insane.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, this isn't Henrietta. This is her daughter.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh,
Elsie Lacks.
Elsie. Okay.
Yes, Elsie Lacks was put in the hospital for the Negro insane.
Right.
Yeah. Not a great
Not-
name.
No.
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 So, on to Henrietta and her cancer. On January 29th, 1951, Lacks went into Johns Hopkins Hospital. She had abdominal pain and she was bleeding from her abdomen. And Howard Jones, the doctor, quickly diagnosed her with cervical cancer. Then she underwent radiation treatment, but sadly died just over 8 months later on October 4th, 1951, as I said. That was in Johns Hopkins. But that, however, is not the end of our story. On to the controversy.
Ooh.
So Henrietta died. That's the end of her life. But it's not the end of her life.
So she didn't do something in her life that we're talking about?
Did it come afterwards?
Yes, it
Wow.
came afterwards. That's what I'm saying. So she did not know anything that she did. She wasn't a scientist.
Wow.
She was just a poor black
Right.
woman.
I was wondering why you were telling us about her death, and then we're going to go back in
It was
time.
a bit weird.
Yeah. That's the thing. So yeah, she wasn't a scientist. She didn't do any of this herself. She was just a poor black woman who was taken advantage of a little bit. So while she was undergoing her radiation treatment, her doctors took 2 samples of cervical cells. She was not aware of this at all.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
The cells from Lacks' tumor made their way to the laboratory of a researcher, George Otto Gay. Gay noticed an unusual quality in the cells. Unlike most cells, which only survived a few days, these cells just didn't die. They wouldn't die at all.
Zombie cells.
Well, not zombie cells, just
Deadpool cells.
immortal cells. Yeah, like Deadpool cells.
Yeah.
They didn't have that programmed cell death inside of them.
Right.
They didn't.
Weird.
Yeah. So what cells normally do is they'll kill themselves if they get too old. Whereas these cells were like, nah, we're going to stick around.
Is that what cancer cells do?
That is what cancer cells do. And these were
Yeah.
cancer cells, but they were specifically a specific type of cancer cell that was really good at being immortal. So most cells only survived a few days, but these ones specifically were very hardy. So we took a few of them and made a specific cell line, which is effectively just, cells that you let replicate and you keep them in the same line. It's basically a family of the same cell.
Yeah.
So he took that, made a cell line, and he called it HeLa, or HeLa, HeLa, as in the first 2 letters
HeLa.
of her names, Henrietta and Lacks.
Ah.
Yeah. So today, you would usually anonymize samples that are sent to the lab.
Yeah.
This was the 50s. They didn't do that.
No.
Oh, but it does mean she lived on, which is nice in our
Means
minds.
we're talking
Yeah.
about her today, which is kind of cool.
It is kind of cool. It is kind of cool and it isn't. This is like I said, this is
Wow.
a big controversy.
We don't know
There's-
the rest of the story.
Yeah,
yet,
there's
so-
more to this story than this. It's not as
Yeah.
nice as it might seem. So, as I said, it was really important. It's really important now to anonymize things like this when you take cells from people, but at this point, it just wasn't. So he did try to hide her identity slightly by saying it was from a woman called Helen Larson. But people eventually figured it out. It leaked to the world in the 70s. And that's around about the time that the Lacks family learned about the cell line. Up until this point, they were completely unaware of it. Their mother, their wife had died of cancer 20 years ago. And
20 years.
Well, yeah. So between 51 and the 70s, 20 odd years, she died, and they just didn't know that she was living on, in a sense, in a lab.
And they'd gone through the grieving process and moved on, and then suddenly...
Yeah, so in 1973, a scientist contacted the family members looking for blood samples and other genetic materials, and I'll tell you why they want that later.
Hang on, blood samples from them?
From them.
From
Okay,
the
not
family.
from do you have any of your mother's blood lying around?
Hey, hi, is this Mr. Lacks? Yeah, no, I'm just calling from Johns Hopkins. I was
Just
wondering,
curious.
you know your wife that died 25 years ago? Do you have any of her blood?
Do you happen to have a vial of her blood around somewhere?
Maybe. Sit in the fridge? No, of course.
Freezer?
Okay.
Basically, just some blood from the family. I'll tell you why they want that later. That's a little bit more in depth. Effectively, they needed blood, and they called the family looking for it. But they didn't do a very good job of, explaining to the family what was
Why?
happening. So
Yeah.
the family kind of thought. I mean, apparently, some of them thought that their mother was alive, or that they were going to be dying of the same cancer, and they were testing their blood to see if they were going to die of that
Hang on,
cancer.
they thought
be
the
so
mother was
scary.
alive.
Well, the way that it was explained, they didn't know if their
Right.
mother was being kept alive in a lab somewhere.
Because they said we've kept some of your mother alive.
Yeah,
In a tube.
yeah.
Right.
I mean, they didn't. I mean, the scientists just didn't explain it. Their genetic samples had been in multiple papers at this point, and they had no idea. In fact, when the scientist called them, he didn't explain, or she didn't explain. They didn't explain what they meant. So the family had no idea what was going on. They
Yeah.
thought, apparently, that their mother could still be alive. They thought that they could be dying of the same cancer, and that's why they wanted samples. They had no idea because, I mean, they weren't very well educated at all. I mean, the husband had a third grade education.
Like year 3.
Yeah, like
Oh,
year 3.
dear.
So he didn't go to school. He didn't know what a cell was.
Yeah.
So he obviously had no basis for understanding any of this. But the reason they were looking for the family to get their genetic samples was because these cells, Henrietta's cells, are incredibly hardy. They're very, very good at surviving. In fact, 25 years after she died, a scientist discovered that a lot of cell cultures that they thought were from other tissue types were like as in breast and prostate cells, were actually HeLa cells.
Oh, from her.
From her.
Still alive.
Still alive, that had infected other cultures and had grown when they'd been trying to grow
Wow.
prostate
Whoa.
or breast cells. Yeah.
So are they trying to use this to figure out immortality or something?
Well, not really. No, it's just because they're immortal human cells, you can use them to study any kind of human disease that you want because you can.
Because it's a baseline.
Yeah, it's a baseline. The cells keep on surviving.
Right.
So we've been using the same cell line since the 1950s.
But we still got it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, you can buy
Whoa.
it. I've got a screenshot
You
here.
can buy it.
Yeah. It's about
This is
£270.
definitely slightly immoral.
Oh, it's incredibly immoral. It gets worse.
Okay.
It gets much worse.
Good news.
Look, at least no animals are dying this time. It's just a poor black woman that's being exploited.
no.
You know?
That's not better. It's
worse.
It's much worse. So, as I said, these cells had infected a bunch of other cell types. Turns out that they float on dust in the air, and they can travel on unwashed hands and just contaminate other samples and grow in there. So,
Is that
something that rides-
these specific cells are especially good at?
well, Henrietta cells are good at it, yes.
It rides the
I mean-
dust in the air.
Who was this lady? Why were her cells
Why are her cells so
simultaneously really
beefy?
good at being alive and also floating on dust?
Because, well, basically...
Cells are really light, aren't they?
So, they're
Oh,
very
that's what I
light.
mean. Is this, can all cells do this, or is this specifically Henrietta's cells
Well,
are good
cells-
at floating on dust?
Cells can float on dust, but they wouldn't
It wouldn't survive,
A mammalian cell wouldn't survive.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, there's cancer cells are quite good at replicating. So the whole kind of immortality thing isn't too far off normal cancer cells. Basically, they thought that she had HPV and a really bad cancer that interacted with each other that caused the cells to both like replicate uncontrollably and just not die. So when a cell replicates, effectively what happens is it chops off a little bit of the ends of the DNA every single time that it replicates.
And that's these are a section of the DNA called, if I got this right, they're called telomeres, which are there because the ends of the DNA get ripped apart and are more likely to be damaged in the copying process. You have this extra kind of like junk bits at the end called telomeres, and those are the bits that get damaged, but they don't actually do anything.
Right.
Yeah, it's like effectively a helmet for your DNA.
Sure.
But if you're using the same helmet every time you crash, at some point it's going to fall apart.
Break.
And then when that happens, when the telomeres break down and they're gone, it's your DNA that starts getting cut into.
Yeah.
So then the cells end up killing themselves because they're like, oh, my DNA is faulty.
And hers don't do
Yes,
that.
I better kill myself. Hers don't do that. And also,
A really strong helmet.
and the telomeres just will not break down as much as other cells. So they can replicate effectively indefinitely, which is incredible.
What would happen if every cell in our body had that? Would we get like, this is going to sound
Cancer.
silly, but would we get really big? Because they would replicate,
no, it'd be like
they would never die.
If they were replicating but not dying. So generally what happens is there's apoptosis, which is a programmed cell death. And that's what happens when your body decides that this cell needs to die.
Yeah.
So even if the DNA wasn't, it depends how you look at it. So there could be two outcomes. Either one, the cells didn't die at all, in which case you would just grow a bunch of tumors. That's what tumors are.
Right.
Whether they're cancerous or not, you would grow a bunch of tumors. So you would get bigger, but it wouldn't be comfortable.
In a good way. Not in a good way.
Not in a good way, no. Or the cells could still know when to die, in which case you'd be normal but pretty immortal. And there'd be less chance of genetic diseases. You wouldn't age. Well, not so much immortal as you just wouldn't age, because a lot of aging comes from, your DNA being like, I don't know what's happening, man. I've been ruined by the 80 years.
That sounds pretty ideal. I take it people are trying to work on making that a thing.
Well, people are trying to, they are absolutely trying to work on making that a thing. And that's one of the ways that we think that immortality might come about in the world, by stopping our DNA from breaking down through repeated replication. So as I was saying, Henrietta's cells are really good at just clinging to dust and getting in everywhere. So a postdoc called her husband one day because they basically wanted to take her family's DNA and just map hers using it. Because obviously if they had the husbands and they had the kids and they had the HeLa cells, they could figure out, okay, right, we take the husband out of the kids, this is Henrietta. So they were going to map her genome so that they could figure out
Very true.
how much had been contaminated by her cells. Because at this point, they're basically looking at all of the cell work they've done and they're like, how much of this is actually
Could this all be
the
her?
cells that we wanted, and how much of it is actually Henrietta? So, as I said a little bit earlier, apparently the way that he understood this was, we've got your wife, she's alive in a laboratory, we've been doing research on her for the last 25 years, and now we have to test your kids to see if they have cancer.
What?
No.
Yeah, not a good idea. Not a good idea to say that. Like I said, he had a 3rd grade education. He didn't know what a cell was, so he was lost. It just goes to show you that having a lot of scientific knowledge doesn't necessarily mean that you can explain it to someone.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons that I love doing this podcast, because it's helping a lot of people understand science in a way that they wouldn't be able to do otherwise. Science literacy is really important. What if your wife dies and you find out 25 years later that she's actually alive in a lab? You need to know that she's not necessarily alive in a lab. She's just a bunch of cells that have been stolen and
getting
kept
into everything.
alive.
Yeah.
So the scientists, being scientists, didn't know that the family didn't understand. And from that point onwards, they kind of got sucked into the world of research, and it kind of took over their lives. And the issue with this as well is that organizations have profited off of those cells that are not theirs to sell at all. They stole cells from a dying poor black woman in the US and then made a killing off of it. Like I said, you can buy HeLa cells for 270 quid. That is the lowest price that I was finding
online. Should be going to the family.
It should be going to the family.
Yeah.
I mean, arguably it shouldn't, because when
it shouldn't be
they're
sold.
her cell. Well, it shouldn't be sold. But one, they're her cells. But two, they've been modified by scientists. So money should be going to the family, but then there'd be no incentive for scientists to work on those cells necessarily. I'm not saying that it's a good thing that they're taking money. I think it's obscene and disgusting, an awful thing that's happened. But the difficult part about this is that, I mean, a lot of good stuff has been done with those cells.
Do you know which organizations are the ones profiting off of this?
Yeah, well, I don't have specific names of all of the organizations because so many different places sell them.
Right.
And so many discoveries have been made off them. So a comprehensive list of them all would be long. Very long.
I just wonder whether, like, do I own the copyright on my genome?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah, it's a question we'll probably have to come up to eventually.
Well, you own, I suppose you do own your genome because you have to sign it. You have to sign that away if you're doing 23andMe, which you shouldn't do, by the way. Don't ever do that.
Yeah, you know they're selling their data to like Amazon or something.
Yeah, and that's.
Well, no, JSK. They're selling like a bunch of stuff. It's not like, I don't think it's particularly like specific people's genomes, but they are selling stuff to GlaxoSmithKline.
Yeah.
Which I think is like, you know, you can look at it in lots of different ways. Like there's, you know, maybe it will benefit, like you're saying here, like lots of good science is done out of this horrible thing that happened, and it's useful as a standard when you're doing experiments and things like that. But 23andMe, for example, as a business, it's kind of like dipping in both ends. Like they should either be doing genome tests for the public, or they should be selling genome to the medical industry, because right now they have incentives to both. They should be doing the free genome tests. Like you should give your genome to 23andMe, you get scanned for free, and the payoff is that they can sell your stuff to the medical industry.
Ultimately, I think the issue with it is that this is a private company that's profiting off of it. If it was a not-for-profit doing research, then yeah, okay, that's more understandable. Yeah. But selling off not even selling, buying your genome while simultaneously giving it away to a private company that can do whatever they want with it. Is
I do have to clarify, I don't think 23andMe are selling individual people's genomes. I think they're doing research and selling the results of that research.
Still, the fact is that they've got your entire they've got your entire genetic code. They've got everything that makes you.
Yeah. It should either be, in my opinion, a consumer-facing company, like a consumer-oriented company, or a medical industry-oriented company. It shouldn't be both. Because you wouldn't, for example, give your DNA to GlaxoSmithKline to do a bunch of research on necessarily. I mean, you might, but you think about it more differently than 23andMe, nice, happy company that tells you if you're going to get HPV later on in life. Like, it's like,
I don't like.
It's a consumer-facing company. Yeah. It's like Apple turning around and selling the data, like the research data from our iCloud files to the military or to some other company, like when they're a happy consumer-facing brand.
Or Apple turning around and becoming a medical company by including all of the stuff that they've included in their new Apple Watch.
Sure, but that's a different thing because
I'm saying it's getting close to that point.
They're becoming a medical. They're becoming a medical company. Yes, i.e., they are selling you ways of making your life better, they are participating in like open studies that you can opt into in different things,
which is fair enough.
But it may well turn awful. Who knows?
No, I don't disagree with you. I feel there's a lot of data that I'm almost willing to kind of sell off in a sense for the comfort and ease of my current life. But when it gets to the things that I have no control over, like my genetic code or how my heart works, that at that point it feels uncomfortable because there are things that they can try and sell to you.
It's very specific things.
Yeah, that you can't say no to, especially in the US. So in the US where there is no free healthcare, if people have data on your health, then there are targeted ads for you to stay alive. Whereas in the UK it's slightly better. I'm not worried about a targeted ad about, hey, we noticed that you could have this heart disease. Buy this medication or you will die. That's something that could conceivably happen in America. It's not something that could happen here. But I'm still not super comfortable with selling off my health data to some random company that could do whatever they want with it. I think people misunderstand the power of data, and I think people really misunderstand how much information is stored in their genome. Like targeted ads, fine. I kind of enjoy them. I like getting things that I know that I want. But targeted ads based on your genetic code just feel a little bit too personal for me.
Yeah.
Because it will also be like your genetic code, if it gets into the hands of advertisers, they'll be able to know which type of things will work on you. And they'll do like tailored advertising based on like your level of anxiety, for example.
Or this person's got seems to have a particularly addictive
Personality. So we'll sell the names and email addresses to them to gambling companies.
Yeah, and it's horrifying. Honestly, that could. But then you bring into that, you've got stuff like Match.com. What if they start using your genetic code to match you up with someone that gives you the desired like children that you want? It starts to get really weird, really fast. And the fact that we don't have enough legislation on it stresses me out.
Yeah,
it's one of these things. This always happens with science. It happened in this case with Henrietta Lacks. There was no regulation. Scientists ran off and did what they wanted, and then we realized, oh, maybe we should have laws against doing this.
Yeah.
And it's still happening today, 70 years later. And it is 70 years later that we get ahead of ourselves with science and forget to make laws about it.
I think particularly now with like AI and all the stuff with data and privacy, we need to be like 10 steps ahead with the legislation, because once the genie's out of the bottle, like it's never getting back in, especially with AI and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing that happened with social media. I mean, even on a smaller scale, look at YouTube. Look at how the Advertising Standards Authority had to deal with that. They had people doing things that would be incredibly frowned upon if it was in television or print. But people could get away with online because there was no regulation, because nobody thought social media was a contender for advertising.
Yeah.
And in a similar way, the legislation around science is always years and years behind. Shall we get back to Henrietta Lacks, though?
Oh, yes.
Yes. So when we left off, we were talking about the organizations that had profited off of Henrietta. However, some have since publicly recognized her contributions to research, which is odd because most people's contributions to research are using their brains. Henrietta used her cervix, and she didn't even want to.
She didn't even know.
She did not. So the Lacks family has been honored at the Smithsonian Institution and the National Foundation for Cancer Research. And
that's nice.
Morgan State University in 2010 granted a posthumous, a post-dying honorary degree to Henrietta.
What? What good is that? That's stupid.
It is stupid.
Yeah.
I think
Has
honestly,
their family been given any money? Like something actually helpful?
well, so Dr. Roland Patillo?
Yeah.
Dr. Roland Patillo of Morehouse donated a headstone for Lacks' unmarked grave.
A headstone.
Not what I said.
Money.
Not
No,
what
a
I said.
headstone. Her grave was unmarked, and now they know which one it is.
Sure.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Well, thank God for that. Did they get any money?
Well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into that. So, Deborah was one of the daughters of Henrietta. She didn't know her mother, and she kind of started looking into it because she wanted to know if any of the stuff that the scientists had could help her get to know her mother better. Her brothers, though, were not really interested until they found out that there could be money involved. HeLa cells were the first human biological materials ever bought and sold, and it launched a multi-billion-dollar industry. And at this point, these people had nothing. I mean, they were incredibly poor. I mean, when her brothers found out that they were selling vials of Henrietta cells, and the family didn't get any of the resulting money, they got very angry. So her two sons got incredibly angry finding out that their mother had been bought and sold, that they were getting nothing.
Yeah, I think it's the phrasing you used, this is not at you, but the phrasing you used there was a little unfair when you said the brothers didn't care until they found out there was money involved, because that makes them sound like money grabbing. I think they probably were just getting on with their lives. And then they went, hang on, there's loads of money here and our mum's dead. Like,
No, as in, I think they didn't think, so here's the thing, they didn't think much about the cells until the money was involved.
Sure.
Not because they're money grabbing.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I
more
just wanted to clarify that.
So more because they didn't really understand it until everyone understands money. That's the unique thing about money, that basically every civilization understands.
Oh. they understand the value of money. I don't think anyone really understands money.
Yeah, no, the value of money. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
As in, if you slap a monetary value on something, someone's like, oh, I want that.
Yeah,
I see.
Sure.
I should want this. And so obviously, with a monetary value on those cells, they realize, oh, this isn't nothing that they've done. This is a something.
Yeah.
So that's when they started to get interested in it. And obviously they got angry that they didn't get any of the money because it's their mother.
Yeah.
You know, it is their money, really.
Yeah, because like if you are somebody who goes and wins a Nobel Prize, you, for a good reason, to a certain extent, I assume for a good reason, you win $1 million because of your contributions to science and your contributions to the world. And like if their mother has probably, by the sounds of it, saved many, many, many lives with the research that's been done on her genome, like, and the only reason she had that, the only reason anyone has that is because their mother died when she was 31, then like they deserve something in return for that.
Yeah.
In that she deserves something in return for that.
For her
and
contribution,
she
yeah.
would pass that on to them and they would then have it.
Yeah.
It's just like it's like the thing in America with like we should be or in Britain as well, actually, we should be having some form of like what's the word when you recognize a past wrong and you kind of like make it good.
Reparations.
Reparations. We should have reparations for like all the slavery, because it's not because like somebody whose grandparent was a slave necessarily like that they aren't a slave, their grandparents are a slave, but because the grandparent would have had stuff to pass on to them that gives like everyone who isn't the child of a slave or the grandchild of a slave a head start in life. And like we should just like
racism, yeah.
give some friggin' money to people whose grandparents were slaves.
Yeah.
We're sorry for racism. Here's some money.
It will be lovely, because then a bunch of people who don't have as much of a voice in this market will have a voice in this market.
Well,
And
that's what they
they're
did.
scared of.
I mean, that's what they did with Holocaust survivors. I mean, a lot of people got a fair amount of money.
Yeah.
One of our friends actually got quite a bit of money.
Really?
Yeah, quite a bit of money from that, which is an awful thing to have happened. But at least there's
Brilliant.
at least it's an awful thing to have happened. But
it doesn't make it okay, but it's
Yeah.
like, great, a good thing's happened
a good
out of a bad thing. Great, lovely.
Gaining money can never be a bad thing, because money is the
Well,
no.
there's lots of people who like win the lottery and then like end up dead because
Everyone ends up dead.
In debt.
They win the lottery and they end up either in debt or dead because they just change their habit so drastically.
Okay, so my point being that giving someone more to live on is not a bad thing, because money is the sole thing in this world
yeah, that has value.
that has value. Yeah.
Sadly,
Yeah. I mean, it's what it was made for. It's its
has
job.
quantifiable value with everybody else. It's the universal like exchange of value thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So
they should give them a load of Bitcoin.
Just one Bitcoin.
One Bitcoin's not something to sniff at,
you
man.
try finding me a Holocaust survivor and explaining to them what Bitcoin is, and then you know what? I'll give you as much money as you want.
Will you give me lots of Bitcoin?
Yes.
I want 100 Bitcoin.
You know, the worst, I have this awful Bitcoin story where I was like staring at my computer when I was like 17 at the price of Bitcoin. It was like $100. And I had like, at the time I had like £300. And my brain was going, do it. Do it, do it, do it. Do it, do it, do it. Do it. Spend all your money on Bitcoin.
And you didn't do it.
I didn't do it. No. And then fast forward like 2 years ago, and the price hit $19,000,
Yeah.
and I would have turned
Basically
£300
20K.
into $60K.
But it's like gambling.
Yeah.
You never no one ever cashes out, so they all
Sure.
they end up losing.
I'll learn for next time. I'll cash out. I'll cash out.
The thing is, I think you need to cash out and then not care about how much
It is.
It's not a loss because you've gained.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
So the brothers found out about the money and they got quite mad. And the thing is that Henrietta's family lived in poverty most of their lives, and they couldn't afford health insurance. I keep on saying it. They were a poor black family in America.
Oh my god, they couldn't afford health insurance
in the 70s.
What? But they're doing all the health.
Yeah. You know the polio vaccine? Yeah, they probably couldn't get that. But with no health insurance.
But their mother.
Oh, their mother's responsible for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Whoops.
so bad.
So I'll just run you through. I'll run you through the family
when
and
you
and
say
where
it like that, it
Problem is
really.
that if she was like a rich white man, she would sue the medical industry and she would win or the family would win so much money.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Of course.
Yes.
Millionaires.
Yes.
Billionaires even. I say
They'd be set
billionaires
for
even.
life?
They would be set for life. Their children would be set for life. Generations
Set
would
for
be
life.
set, honestly. And they would also be earning like residuals on that as well. They'd be
Yeah.
earning like
They could like
royalties.
patent genome.
I don't think you can patent a genome.
But they should be able to. We should instigate a rule just for her.
Just you can copyright it.
You can patent it. Nobody else.
So I'll run you through her family. So
Okay. Can I say a
Luke's got an
joke
idea.
go.
that's really bad? What do you say to Henrietta Lacks when you want to express your gratitude?
That's hella good.
Thank you for your cervix.
Fuck you.
No.
It's a horribly sad story, but also what a wonderful cervix this woman had.
It's not. It killed her
But what a wonderful
But it saved a lot of
contribution her
people.
cervix has done to the world.
by killing her.
No, yes, I suppose. Well, her cancer killed her, not her cervix. But
Cancer
The
was
cancer-
her cervix.
sure,
It was in her cervix.
okay.
No, it was her cervix. It was cervical
Wow.
cancer.
You know.
Okay,
So Henrietta's husband Day, and as I said, she had her first baby with him when she was 14. He worked in a steel mill in Baltimore. And how much do you think he made an hour?
10 cents.
James.
I don't know.
$8.
Oh my god.
$8?
80 cents.
I was closer. I knew it wouldn't be that
Yeah.
much.
I mean, you're on like prison wages and you're on like
Yeah.
around about the minimum wage right now.
Well,
I was going to say.
sorry, I don't know when this was.
70s.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Let me go again. 80 cents?
Oh wow, really good, Luke. Well done.
Wow,
Thank
how'd you guess?
Well, you know, when you're me.
Gets worse. One of our sons was homeless and living on the streets of Baltimore. Yeah, and so I mean, the family for that reason and others tried to launch a campaign to get money for her contributions. Elsie, who was in the hospital for the Negro Insane, died shortly after her mother, so she's out of the picture. One of the sons, Joe, dropped out of school and then stabbed another boy and was sentenced to 15 years in jail.
Oh, gosh.
And Deborah, who I mentioned earlier, was a teenage mother who later left her husband after he beat her up.
Oh,
Right.
Yeah.
horrible.
So a journalist caught up with them in 2000, and almost all of them was in poor health. So Day, the husband, had prostate cancer and asbestos-filled lungs. Sonny, who was one of the sons, had a bad heart. And Deborah had arthritis, osteoporosis, nerve deafness.
Nerve
Nerve deafness.
Nerve deafness.
Is that like where you can't hear through your nerves?
Yeah,
Like
I'm
you
not
can't-
even sure.
You can't
I just
feel? Is that just lack of sense of touch?
I wrote that in. I didn't even. I just read deafness. I'm
How
not even
old
sure.
was she at this point?
So Deborah, she would have had to have been
Pretty young.
50s. 50s.
Older than I thought.
Yeah,
Yeah.
50s or 60s. So Deborah, as I said, she had nerve deafness, anxiety, and depression. So the California Supreme Court upheld the right to commercialize discarded tissue in the 1990 case Murr versus Regents of the University of California. In 2013, German researchers published the genome of a strain of HeLa cells without permission from the Lacks family. And then in 2013, an agreement between the family and the National Institutes of Health granted the family acknowledgement in scientific papers and some oversight of the Lacks genome. So basically, they can kind of decide, they have some decisions over what happens with it and what studies are done. And they'll be kind of acknowledged in studies, but as far as I'm aware, they're not really getting much monetary contributions. Because why would people do that? They don't care.
If they don't have to.
They don't
Yeah.
care. It's a poor black family in America. Like, nobody cares. And this is something that you guys didn't hear about up until today, right?
I have heard
Oh,
of
absolutely
this
not.
before.
Have you heard of the cells? Have you heard of the story?
I've heard of there being a set of cells which are like standardized and are tested against and you can buy. I didn't know the horrible story behind that, but I knew that this thing existed.
That's exactly my point. So
Yeah,
if
sure.
anything, let's be honest, if anything, you should know about the story more than you know about the cells.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least if you know about the cells, you should know about the story. This
You
is not
should
something
know
that's
about
really
the
taught
story.
in schools. Or even really in university either. I mean, I didn't hear anything about about this. I knew about the cells, and I knew that it came from a woman with cervical cancer, but I
Yeah.
didn't know It was basically
horrible.
stolen.
Yes,
yeah,
literally stolen.
there are so many HeLa cells that if you were to put them from end to end, they would wrap around the planet at least 3 times.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah. And Johns Hopkins in February 2010 released a statement. It's kind of long, but I'll rush through it as much as I can. Johns Hopkins Medicine sincerely acknowledges the contribution to advances in biomedical research made possible by Henrietta Lacks and the HeLa cells. It's important to note that at the time the cells were taken from Mrs. Lacks's tissue, the practice of obtaining informed consent from cell or tissue donors was essentially unknown among academic medical centers. 60 years ago, there was no medical practice of seeking permission to take tissue for scientific research purposes. So basically what they're saying is that, yeah, we did that, but back then it was okay.
Not okay, but
I don't
normal.
think
It was
Yeah.
not something they would have. It wasn't something that was done deliberately, unconsciously. Like,
Yeah, it's not.
Would
It's not
they-
something that's. It's not like they. It's not like they did this now illegal act when it was
Yeah.
illegal. But that's like Disney saying.
They probably wouldn't have even considered it like morally wrong or.
But
they
that's
just wouldn't have thought about it.
Yeah,
it's a
they,
normal
they wouldn't have
practice.
thought twice.
I don't think
about
the
it.
scientists nowadays would think it's morally wrong. It's just it's legally wrong.
Yeah.
You know. So. Yeah, I mean, look, to me, it's kind of like Disney releasing a statement saying, yeah, Song of the South, bad, but hey, racism was kind of okay then, so you can't get too mad at us. We think it's
Sure.
bad, but like, it was, everyone was doing it,
Sure.
which is, it's a bit of a cop-out, really. It's like, we're apologizing, but also, it was okay at the time.
They should have. I think it is. I think it is a fair explanation, not excuse, that you say this was normal practice at the time. But they should have then said, now that it's not normal practice and we are a multi-billion-dollar
So
institution,
Johns Hopkins they didn't make money off of it,
right?
but they were
okay.
the ones that started.
Right. But they should have, in their
Right.
statement, given a recommendation towards how to rectify this wrong,
absolutely.
if possible.
All they said at the end was effectively that they didn't sell them or benefit from them financially in any way. Because originally the doctor that worked at Johns Hopkins was just sending them out to people
Sure.
for free. Yeah, which then led on to that. And when he was doing it, it's a good thing in the sense of like science, sharing information and sharing like
I guess
science
he didn't sell. Yeah, that's better.
materials for free, but also they're not his to share.
Yeah,
I guess the thing we really need as a in the world of biology is we need some kind of legal ruling over who is the owner of the genome. Like, because that's not necessarily an obvious thing. Because like you're born into your genome, you didn't
So do
necessarily.
your parents own it, or do
So
you?
yeah, you did. But this point is like you don't earn your genome. Like you didn't. Like you're just born into it. But you of all people, if there is anyone who's meant to own it, it would be you. And you're also the one who, like Henrietta, have to put up with the bad side of your genome. You're the one who suffers from that, right? If you, for example, die. And so if then there's some mutation of your genome, which means that you undergo some horrible thing like having cervical cancer, but then you have a multi-billion-dollar contribution to science, then the ownership rights of that need to be legally ruled on where that flow of money goes. And if the ruling is that science can kind of do what it likes, but it has to pay some licensing or like that would be that you can't stop scientific advancement. Like, because if you stop scientific advancement as the West, then China will do scientific advancement or Russia will do scientific. Whatever, it will happen somewhere. Someone will do it. But if you just have a rule in place, even if it's like 1 penny for every sample
Yeah.
sold out of $270, like
Ultimately,
come on.
I think it should just be a case of the money can go to the organizations that are, the money can go to the organizations that are doing the research and modifying these cells because they are doing the work. But yeah, a small portion.
like a penny.
Yeah, a small portion.
penny.
Some portion needs to go to the person whose cells they are.
Yeah.
Because
A penny. It's a penny. Come on. If you just added up all the different times you'd sold it and times that by
they'd be-
0.01. Yeah, sure. It'd be a lot of money now.
yeah.
Sure. But like at some point this is like Microsoft have just announced that they're going to be a carbon negative company. They've just announced we're going to take all the carbon out of the atmosphere that we have put in the atmosphere by our operations. And that's a really big thing. It's incredible. And yeah, they will have had loads of meetings going, that's ridiculous. That's so much to do. But at some point, you've got to make the change. Someone's got to do that. And they've been the ones to do it.
When I say it's a lot of money, I'm not saying that's ridiculous. I'm saying that's a lot of money and they deserve all that money.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, even if like her family were given what, like $1 million, which would be like a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of
$1 million each.
Yeah.
You know
But
what I mean?
And even then, it's still
some
like
amount of money that's like
a fraction.
It's nothing to the industry that's giving it, but it's everything to the person who's receiving
Oh,
it.
absolutely. A multi-billion-dollar industry losing, what, 5 million?
Yeah.
I think
They're
you're all
fine.
right.
I think they'll be
They'll
fine.
be fine.
It's like if you had 100 quid and you lost, wait, hold on, 1,000, right? You had 1,000 quid and you lost a fiver. You're not going to cry about it.
Yeah.
Like,
It'll be fine.
you'll be fine. So that's the controversy. But I'm just going to go quickly through how those cells stay immortal, which we touched on, but I didn't really
Please.
go into.
Is it the Philosopher's Stone?
No, it's
Fountain
not.
of Youth.
No, it's not. Anything else? Nothing else?
No.
No.
Doctor Who.
That's
Ooh, good
regeneration, and it's similar to that.
That's kind of what cells do when they divide.
Yeah, it is. So effectively, they were the first human cells to survive in vitro, which means the first human cells to survive in a test tube, which is
Wow.
insane.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Wait,
so,
why did they put them in a test tube if every other cell forever had died?
because they were cancer, so because they were obviously understood vaguely how cancer cells worked, and they knew that they can replicate, they could replicate basically as much as they wanted without dying. But he was obviously trying to do that kind of research and see if they could make them survive, because it's not like scientists just go, "Oh, that's not working. Let's just never try it again."
Sure.
You know? The whole point is that didn't
lost
work.
cause.
Let's try it. Let's try and make it work now. So it's the most commonly used cell line. All of the body's normal cells experience aging over time, and this is called cellular senescence. Effectively, like we said, repeated divisions shorten your DNA, make it unstable, and then toxins form. Effectively, cells become unable to replicate, and then they just kill themselves because that's what they're programmed to do. All of your cells, you've got a bunch of your cells killing themselves right now. It's called apoptosis, like I said. And it's
very
actually
nice.
very good because otherwise
Oh, it's
you would
good,
be
okay.
growing tumors
Good.
constantly.
Thank you for your sacrifice, cells.
How many cells do you think you just lost saying that?
I
dear.
don't want to
Fair
think
for you.
about it.
Well, I lost all my brain cells listening to it.
May they rest in peace.
Yeah, so effectively, it can sound bad, but it's necessary for life. Cell death, I mean. So, for instance, your fingers and toes, when you're in the womb, they're webbed.
Wow.
They're totally webbed together, and then cell death causes the webs to, die off and makes individual fingers.
Wow.
Which is not very good for swimming, but it is good for grabbing.
It is quite good for grabbing.
It is, isn't it? Yeah. And imagine where you would be without being able to grab.
Thank God I don't have webbed fingers. Wouldn't be able to drink anything.
Obviously, too much can cause tissue damage and lead to disease, and cause your muscles to waste away, anything to waste away. You don't want too much cell death. You want the exact right amount, and you don't want too little cell death, obviously, because that could cause cancers. But HeLa cells are completely set apart from other kind of cells because under the right conditions, they just form an immortal cell line, meaning that they just divide indefinitely without getting any less stable.
Yeah.
So, like I said, they think it's because the mixing between HPV and syphilis. So, both of those together suppressed cell death in the cells, but also stopped the DNA from becoming ridiculously unstable, which it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
That it was the chances of that happening, that this woman who had such horrible cancer and HPV and syphilis all at once caused one of the hardiest cell lines that we've ever discovered.
What would happen if, say, for example, the HeLa cells found just something to eat? Like you put them on I don't know, something that cells would like to eat. Would they just form a giant mass? Would they just keep dividing until they're just a big lump of cells?
I mean, that's kind of how cell cultures work, isn't it?
Yeah. But could they eventually coat the earth in HeLa cells?
No,
Why not?
because
Imagine if she became the Earth.
Yeah.
because culturing mammalian cells is quite difficult.
Okay.
It's not as easy as bacterial cells, you know?
Microbial sheets.
Well, yeah, microbes are easy, you know? They're so easy.
I suppose they're not designed to
job.
do that. They're designed to be inside a cervix.
Exactly. And microbial cells just do that on their own, which is why fruit and food just goes off and goes moldy without you doing anything about it. So yeah, it wouldn't really work with human cells, but with microbial cells, it's easy. So what are they used for, HeLa cells?
Testing, medicines.
Medicines and
Yes.
stuff, right?
They've been involved in some of the biggest medical advances of the past 70 years. You know, the polio vaccine, chemotherapy, cloning, gene mapping, IVF. Because they're so hardy and so popular, they are your standard immortal cell line.
They're like a rat.
That's amazing.
They are the rats of human cells.
Yeah.
Obviously, some researchers think of them as being a weed because they are so hardy and they can contaminate other cells. Apparently, because they're so difficult to get rid of, they can contaminate as many as 20% of other cell lines, which is
She's got
1/5
some
of the
strong cells.
which is insane. And they can overwhelm the other cells and just ruin research because they're so good. It's like accidentally getting a mold
So getting payback.
in your cell culture and the mold just taking over.
Yeah.
Except this is some dead
It's a
boring
person.
cells. Yeah.
Yeah.
So so if you do a search on PubMed, which is kind of a website that's got a lot of papers on it, scientific papers, you search for HeLa, it turns up with more than 107,000 papers.
Wow.
Whoa.
Go HeLa.
And this was as of yesterday when I checked. Over 107,000 off of this one woman who probably didn't know what a cell was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so multiple Nobel Prizes have been won. One in 2008, one in 2009, and I think a couple more recent ones were won using those cells. And it was initially developed for cancer research, but then it's just exploded from there. We sent them to outer space to prove that cancer cells can still grow there.
Wow.
They can. And it's just been used for many different things. And like I said, they used it for the polio vaccine. And a lot of virology. So a lot of different vaccines like measles and mumps were tested on those cells. So many of the things that you almost would take for granted have come from this one cell line.
Yeah. From this one lady.
From one lady who didn't even know
She's in space
that
now.
it was happening. Yeah. I mean, polio was killing was killing so many people. 60,000 cases in 1952. And they came with a vaccine, and now no one has polio.
Yeah.
It's not eradicated, but it's more or less eradicated in the US.
Yeah.
I mean, just from her cells working on them, that vaccine was created. It's incredible. They've also used it to study tuberculosis, HIV, and HPV, which resulted in the HPV vaccine. So her cells are incredibly useful, and it's awful the history that's behind them, you know.
Yeah.
But that is it for today. That is the end of our story.
That was a thoroughly depressing episode.
Yeah, I'm sorry to end
But
on a bit
also
of a downer.
really interesting.
But you know what that means? It's time for.
Oh, it's time for the quiz.
Oh, the
It's time for the
quickfire
quickfire quiz. That's right. Okay, so first question goes to Luke.
Hi.
How much was Day earning per hour?
80 cents.
Ding ding, that is right.
That was such an easy one.
I'm sorry, that was easy. So I'll go for another easy one for you, Jamp.
Alrighty.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Other than the HPV vaccine, what vaccine was developed using HeLa cells?
Polio.
Ding ding ding!
I was like, is this a trick question?
Okay, back to you, Luke.
Hi.
What year in BL was Henrietta Lacks born?
Oh.
Okay, so she was 31 in 1951. She was born in 1920, which means she was born in 74 BL.
Yeah.
Ding ding, that
I showed my working.
is right! Okay, Jamp,
Yes.
what is the name for programmed cell death?
I know.
Cancer? I don't know.
Apotheosis?
Oh,
I wouldn't have guessed that.
apoptosis.
Oh, I didn't know that. I forgot that immediately.
Is it one more each?
Yeah.
One more each. Okay.
2-1, boy.
This is it. This is the decider. Okay. What is one of the cheapest prices? Oh, this is for Luke. Isn't it? Luke.
Yeah.
What is one of the cheapest prices that you can buy HeLa cells for?
$270.
It's actually £271.
Oh.
Sorry, the wrong units there, Luke.
Come on.
I'm sorry. Jamp, what is the name of the hospital that first used HeLa cells?
Johns Hopkins.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
And Jamp is our winner for this week.
No, he's not.
No,
Is he
it's
not?
2-all.
Is it 2-all?
Yeah.
We need a deciding question.
Oh, dear.
Good draw.
Oh, it's
Unless
drawing?
there's a deciding question.
There are no draws in this game.
Okay.
Oh. Well, it's on.
Okay, so I want you both to... What are your buzzers? Give me a buzzer.
Wait, no, they're
A
too
buzzer
similar.
that doesn't sound terrible.
Hello.
Okay. So the first person to buzz in, decided by me, will get to answer the question first. If you get it wrong, then it goes on to the next person. You only get one guess. The question is, what are the little helmets on the end of your DNA called? Oh, that's Luke.
Telomeres.
And ding, ding, ding! Luke is the winner for the second
2
week
weeks
running.
in a row.
How did you do? Did you beat Luke and Jamp? Let us know on Twitter, Facebook, or send us an email.
At
gmail.com.
That's SciGuysPod@gmail.com.
SciGuysPod.
At gmail.com. Before we go, I do want to thank a few people.
Okay.
Some of our patrons.
Yeah, Patreon time.
Do you not want to thank Henrietta first?
Oh, thanks, Henrietta.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your cervix. That's a joke that I made up by myself. Jamp, put this bit at the end of the episode. And remember, I said it before Luke says it again.
That's the first time I've heard that joke before.
So, first off, I would like to thank Alice Blecker, because the rest of it's cut off.
Aziaza HR.
I'll be sending you to HR, mate.
Thank you to Ella Hellacy.
Thank you to Hiccup.
Thank you to Landy Manderson.
Thank you to Luke Cudforth.
Hell yeah.
Thank you to me standing.
Thank you to Megan Pointing.
Thank you to Natalia.
And thank you finally. You're going to cut me off?
All right.
And thank you finally to Tobias Shuffle. Shuffle?
Thank you to all of our lovely patrons.
Thank you for helping us out and making the podcast as best as it can be. If you want to become a patron, you can go to patreon.com/SciGuys and, chuck in whatever you wouldn't miss out your pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the end of the show, guys. So
That's the end of the show.
thank you for watching. You can find the full references for this episode in the description. Subscribe for new episodes every Sunday. And why not leave us a nice wee comment? You can find and contact us at SciGuysPod on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I'm not Corey everywhere.
I'm chucking everywhere. That's so wrong.
I'm Luke Cutforth everywhere.
Goodbye.
Bye.